Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Krupatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Om शिष्य आत्मसमर्पण कार्पण्य दोषो उपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्म सम्मूढचेता यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् Om. Welcome to the class, and we are in the end of the second chapter. We completed the 72nd shloka last week, and today we will be just concluding it. So typically at the end of every chapter, we say this, where the Acharya, the Bhagavad Gita, is being defined in terms of the chapters. Om Tat Sad Ithi Srimad Bhagavad Gītāsu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Śrī Kṛṣṇa Arjuna Samvade Sāṅkhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayah. Going word by word, Om Tat Sad. This is a samarpan to the Lord. We will be discussing about what this is, Om, Tat and Sad, all of them in chapter 17. Iti is this, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su. It is Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Upanishatsu, revealing the essence of the Upanishads, Brahma Vidyayam, which provides the knowledge about Brahman, the Paramatma Swarupam. Yoga Shastre, and provides guidance to Yoga Shastra. When we talk of Yoga Shastra, there are four that we talk about: Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. Then Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. This is revealed as part of the conversation between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. Saankya Yogo Nama. This is the name of the chapter. In this chapter titled Saankya Yoga, this chapter speaks about Saankya philosophy, which deals with the Atma Anatma Vivekaha. It identifies and differentiates between that which is the conscious principle and that which is inert. Dvitiyodhyayah, the second chapter, and forms the second chapter. So this concludes the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Each chapter will conclude with the same verse except for the name and number of the chapter. So what did we do in chapter 2? The second chapter starts with Sanjaya stating that the Arjuna's condition was in such a state with his eyes, full of tears. Kripaya paraya vishtaha is the way that he puts it. Fully enveloped by the feeling of karuna. Asru Purna Akhulam, which is eyes filled with tears. This was the state of Arjuna. Shloka number 2 and 3 is the place where Bhagwan will approach Arjuna as a friend. When Arjuna approached Krishna as the master, Lord Krishna obeyed the master as a charioteer. And he took the rath and placed it between the two senas. Senayor Ubhayor Madhe, Me Ratham Sthapaya Achyuta, is the way that Arjuna issues the command and he obeys it. After he breaks down, he becomes friendly. His approach is no longer of that of a master, but of a friend. So Bhagwan also responds with the same kind of friendliness. There are two kinds of expressions that we can see in it. One is it induces him to get back and fight, and another is a harsh one where it kind of insults Arjuna. Kutastva kashmalamidam. So the way that he starts is that. And then anarya jushtamas, he says that anarya is that which is not manly. So that is the way. Klaibhyam, it's impotence. So he uses those words, which is again a little insulting, as a friend would do it, not in terms of downgrading a person, but more along the lines of how friendly one will speak. In shloka number 4 to 8, Arjuna is kind of, he's expressing his problems. He says, hey, how is it that I can kill Bhishma and Drona? Katam Bhishma Maham Saaṅkhya is the way that he speaks. And he expresses the willingness to live the life of a saint, Bhiksha Jivanam, and he surrenders as an Uttama Adhikari. What is this Uttama Adhikari we saw? Which is, the problem is we are not straight in our heart. We may be very sorrowful and yet we pretend of being, normal or maybe smiling. So there is a bit of a duality. There is a split in us. When there is a split in you, the ability for us to grasp is lower. Here, Arjuna was broken and he was broken. There was no difference in that. And in that he surrendered completely. And that totality of the personality is what makes a person to be an Uttama Adhikari. When that totality is not there in you, the ability to learn and grasp comes down. And this is what we saw in the shlokas 4 to 8. In the shlokas 9 and 10, Sanjaya spoke, saying that Bhagwan was prahasanniva Bharata. He was kind of smiling in his response. Means that smile was not like, laughter. It is more of an absolute confidence. I understand your plight and I know what is to be said. And that to what Arjuna asked, he said, that which is good for me, please say. That is what Arjuna said. And here he is having an absolute confidence in terms of, well, I understand your situation and I know what is the correct response that I should be giving you at this point in time. That is the kind of smile that Bhagavan had given. From the 11th shloka onwards, the Upadesha starts. Between shloka 11 and 24, Bhagavan speaks about Atma Gyan. Shloka 25 and 28, represents the reason for Arjuna to not lament. In the 25th shloka, he says, based on Atma Swarupam, even if Atma Swarup is misunderstood, there is no point in lamenting. And from the basis of Anatma Swarupam, in the 27th and 28th shloka, Bhagavan speaks about that which is born has to die. So there is no point in lamenting over such death. In shloka 29, he gives the greatness of the Jnana. Important shloka. Read. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam ascharyavat vadati tadaiva chanyah ascharyavat chaiva manya shrunoti shrutva pyenam vedana chaiva kaschit is the way that he spoke in the 29th shloka. The 30th to 37th shloka, Bhagavan gives the viewpoint of Swadharma, the third vikalpa. As a Kshatriya, it is important to fight the war. If you don't fight, what is going to happen? There he says that, hey, people are not going to think that you, out of your karuna, out of your compassion, you left the battlefield. They are going to say that you ran as a coward. Avachya vadan. That which cannot be spoken, that is the way that they will speak about you, is the way that he puts it. Shlokas 38 to 48, Bhagavan describes the Karma Yoga. Basically differentiates between karmi and karma yogi, warning about karmis, pushpitam vacham, yamimam pushpitam vacham. He speaks about all those things where he differentiates a person who is a karmi, a person who is thinking that I am the doer, versus a karma yogi who devotes what he is doing to Bhagavan. He introduces the important term that we saw called as Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi, the importance of having a mind which is fixed in the approach that we are taking. Then the 45th shloka, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha, and 47th shloka, Karmanyevadikaraste, 48th shloka, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya, all those things are part of this Karma Yoga. Between 48 to 53, Bhagavan speaks to a Karmi's mind versus Yogi's mind, giving the differentiation, forms the source for the clarification and the doubt that Arjuna asks about Sthitaprajña. These are all the shlokas which brought about the question that will come in the third chapter as well. In the third chapter, Arjuna will ask, he will start with a question as to, hey, why is it that you are asking me to engage in this gore karmane, in this terrible act? When you say that the buddhi yogam or the jnana yoga is more superior, is the way that he will ask the question. Going further, the karmi versus yogi, karma yogi versus jnana yogi. Here, Bhagavan gave a lot of things. Karmi, one who is engaged in various sets of activities. Avyavasaya buddhi, that buddhi which is not fixed or focused. Whereas yogi is one whose mind is focused. Then the confusion of Arjuna. Bhagavan does not explicitly state karma yogi and jnana yogi are the same. Karma yogi versus jnana yogi is the way that he puts it. Bhagavan will clarify later that they both are the same. This will come in chapter number 5. Arjuna fails to differentiate between karmi and karma yogi, which leads to the question in the next chapter. The shloka number 54, Arjuna asks the question. He seeks to understand this vyavasayatmika buddhi. He coins the term called as Sthitaprajña. Instead of saying vyavasayatmika buddhi, he says one whose prajna is sthitham, and asks the question about the nature of that person. Sthitaprajñasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava, etc. Between shlokas 55 to 72, Bhagavan explains the term Sthitaprajña. There are 16 attributions that Bhagavan would have spoken about the Sthitaprajña. Of 18 shlokas, 5 shlokas, 60, 62, 63, 66, and 67, defines who is not a Sthitaprajña and calls them Vipaschitaha. Vipaschita Purushaha, distinguishes for clarity between Sthitaprajñan and a not Sthitaprajñan. The important shlokas are 62 and 63, where Bhagavan speaks about the attraction to the sensory objects and which leads to the ragaha. Then he defines the fall of the mind, where ragaha leads to krodaha, krodaha leads to mohaha, from mohaha to vibhramaha to buddhinashaha to pranashyati. So he establishes what happens when we get attracted to vishayaha. So all the shlokas in this 55 to 72 are really very, very important. Very beautiful shlokas as well. And the 72nd shloka, Bhagavan concludes by stating the Brāhmī Sthiti, the subtle move from being a Sthitaprajña to the Brāhmī Sthiti. That subtle movement is not based on any Upadesh. And we took the analogy of a mirror. In this example, we said that, hey, first, you look at the mirror, you see the image, and you do not know what that is. You are kind of curious as to what it is. When it is explained to you that it is your image, your first thought is the image that you are seeing in the mirror is me. That is what happens in our mind. The chitabhasam, the abhasam is the reflection. That is the Chaitanya's reflection in your manaha. You misunderstand it to be you. Then you will come to the state which is your own, which is identifying that the image that you are seeing in your mind is not you, rather it is me whose image is reflected in the mirror. And at that time, the dualistic experiences will be completely lost. And because of the Chaitanya Amsam, you will also understand that Manaha is also an expression of the Chaitanyam. And when you get to that, the Chaitanya Amsam is the truth, will be the realization, and that truth is you, will be the way that we proceed towards Jnana, towards Atmajnana. Atmajnana is that where you understand the true swarup of the Atma. We always refer to it as I, and I. This I, what it represents, is what the Atma Jnana is. When once you understand it, you have not come to the realization of what it is. And thereafter, we go through the remainder of the 16 chapters to really understand what that I is. In the second chapter, Bhagavan has shown that image. And in the subsequent chapters, we will be guided to converting the knowledge of seeing the Chaitanya Amsam in our mind to becoming that Chaitanya Amsam in us. I am that Chaitanya Amsam, not the reflection, is the realization that the remainder of the chapters is going to guide you. So, very beautiful one. There were 16 attributions that we saw. The first one is Prajahati Yada Kaman, Sarvan Kaman. Sarvan Kaman represents all the desires. Prajahati. Jahati is dropping it. Pra as a prefix, which adds a emphasis, prakashena, right? That kind of an emphasis where all the kama is gone. Sometimes what happens is I have let go of things, but my mind is still attached to that kama. When we say prajahati, it means that attachment from the mind is also gone, is also dropped. What does that mean? Atmani eva atmanaha tushtaha. That is the second value that Bhagavan spoke about. I am in need of so many things for my contentment. I need to watch a TV, I need to read a newspaper, I need to sing a song, I need to listen to music. I need so many things to keep myself contented. Atmani eva atmanaha tushtaha represents that you are contented wholly within yourself. That is the characteristic of Sri Ram as well. Lord Ram is called as Ram because of this nature of his, which is Swasmin Rameti, one who is, delighted by his own self. And you cannot, if you have the divided approach of the world, you can only be contented when you understand this Atma Swarupa is that which encompasses everything. The third thing that he spoke about is Dukkheshu Anudvigna Manaha, where I do not become impacted by the experiences of sorrow that I go through. So, Anudvigna Manaha is following the Dukkham. Dukkham will come, and that is very natural. That Anu emphasizes that following and continuing on the path of Dukkham is what the Sthitaprajña will not have. Sukheshu Vigata Spruhaha. Similarly, when there is going to be a nice experience, I will not have a extreme attachment to that experience as well. Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Ragam, Bhayam, and Krodham. All those three should have been dropped. Anabhisneha Sarvatra. Right? So that means there is no enmity that you have towards anybody, or any attachment as well towards anybody. So Sarvatra, you are going to be balanced. Prapya Shubham and Ashubham. Basically, whenever it is immaterial whether I get Shubham or Ashubham, I will still maintain my balance. Na abhinandati na dveshti. Similar to Vigata Spruhaha and Anudvigna Manaha. We saw the difference. wanting more of good experience and seeing bad experience as hurdles versus celebrating and brooding over that. So that is the basic difference. Then kurma angani iva, with respect to the sensory object. So when the experiences happen with the sensory object, and if there is a spriha that develops into our mind, then very naturally the kurma angani iva, we will just withdraw that particular sense from, or sensory aspects, the eyes or the ears or whatever it is, from the object that is attracting. Asya drishtva param. How? That is what is applied here. The way that you develop that withdrawal is by putting the value on something higher. And here we take the param as the Bhagavan. Tani sarvani sayyamya, regulating oneself from the attraction and distractions. Atma vashyaihi vidheya atma. Here, the importance of Vedic knowledge as means to attain is what we spoke about. Indriyani indriya arthebhyah. Importance of complete withdrawal. That is what we saw in that shloka. 14th is an important shloka, where he says, Yanisha sarvabhutanam tesham jagarti sanyame yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato munehe. That was the shloka. So what is night for a Sthitaprajña is the day for a commoner, and what is a night for a commoner is a day for Sthitaprajña. And we saw what is the awareness that plays as an important role in this. In the 15th value, we saw Samudram Achalam Iva, where we get all the experiences that cannot be avoided. But the way that an ocean is, as in no matter how many experiences we come up with, the ocean remains stable. No matter how many rivers flow into it, ocean remains stable. It does not get disturbed. And that is what should become the quality of the person when they experience several experiences. Nirmamaha and nirahankaraha as the 16th value. Not having some kind of a proprietorship or some kind of a false ego, like I did this, I have achieved it, I am this, I am that, etc. So that concept will also go away. So these are all the 16 attributions that we see as a value for Sthitaprajña. And all of these are kind of exercises for us. Acharya had said that that which is the swarup of a jnani is actually a sadhana for the commoner. And these 16 are the things that you want to contemplate on yourself and see whether you are getting disturbed, whether there is attraction that is driving you, and so on. Whether you are getting delighted when you are having a happy experience, or whether you are kind of becoming averse to some kind of bad experience. Are you being in a balanced state? It doesn't mean don't enjoy. It doesn't mean become like a person who is detached to everything in the world. You will be completely normal and fully in the current moment. That is the essential characteristic of Sthitaprajña that Bhagavan has spoken in the 2nd chapter. So these are the values that we got from the chapter 2. So with this, we can proceed to the 3rd adhyaya. The 3rd adhyaya is called Karma Yoga. This starts with Bhagavan, or with Acharya, giving an elaborate introduction. Once again, the concept is about how a jnani is not bound to the karma because the karta bhavam is not there in the jnani. That is the basic emphasis that Acharya provides in the bhashyam, and then we will be going into each of the shloka. So with this, I will conclude today's class and go off to the Q&As. Question and answer that we were discussing about was from Shrikant Bhaiya in terms of the emotions. We know that they have gone through something not a common man, not all of us, very, very unique, very, very rare that people go through such experiences. Losing a daughter of such a young, at such a young age with so much of caliber is not a joke. The question was around how is it that a man takes it, or as a father he is taking it, versus the mother who has got an emotional attachment, and how it is impacting. What is the difference between how a man is able to take versus how a woman is taking it? So for this, though this was not a question, this was more of a statement, I did convey to him that we will explore this concept during a Q&A here. And today I was thinking I will just address that as well. Main thing that we want to understand is a man and a woman are not equals. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. How can you equate the two? Can you equate an apple with a potato? You can't. They are two different things. The construct should be seen from the point of view of what is the role they play in the society. We have spoken about the Prakriti as an amsam, and the Prakriti is continuously changing at all times. There are two elements that have to come together for it to undergo that particular change at a material level as well. A Jiva Amsam is one that brings about. There is one concept which is, let us take the example of a tree. If you take the example of a tree, the role played by a woman can be equated to the role of a leaf in the tree, whereas the role of a man is of that of a stem. A stem cannot sustain without the leaf, and a leaf cannot sustain without the stem. The role of the stem is to create a social connection and establish the tree. And the role of a leaf is a lot of it. Leaf is the one which brings life into the tree. If the tree dies, all the leaves are gone. That leaf is the one which brings life into the tree. Leaf is the one which nurtures the tree by bringing in the support that is needed for the tree to sustain, for the society to sustain, that support the feed of the food that is required for such a sustenance is provided by the leaf. On the other hand, again, one more thing, the beauty. If you look at it, the beauty of the tree is defined by its trees and not by its stems. If in case the leaves have dropped, we do not see the same beauty in a tree. So bringing the beauty in the world is also the role of the leaf. Beyond that, to be able to provide the continuity of the society, that is again a key role being played by the woman. And hence the role of the tree in terms of the emotional quotient is very different for a woman versus for a man. For a man, it is the connections, it is the logic that drives. Whereas for the woman, it is the emotion that drives. We will never be able to understand that aspect, the emotional aspect that is driving a woman's mind, that is driving the woman's purpose of life. Similarly, it will be impossible for the woman to understand the logical connections that the man provides to the world. A leaf may think, I understand. The stem may think that I understand the leaf. Of course, there will be a little bit of understanding, but can you really be in that role to understand? Can you really be in that mindset to understand? And that is not going to be there. And hence, it is very important that the leaf also understands the role that it plays and the importance of the role that the leaf plays and the importance of the stem that connects the leaf to the tree, and for the stem to understand the importance of the role of the leaf. Because of the role of the leaf, the emotions that are required, the thought process that is required is very different to what the stem will have. And hence, the emotions should be seen from that point of view to say that it is very natural expression of that body. And that must be respected. That's about it. Can it be, can I go and say, hey, don't be sad or don't be affected or inflicted by the pain, etc.? As a normal advice, anybody can provide. What we can always do is offer our prayers. Because whenever we need the support, it is the God that we reach out to and hold on to. To say that, hey, I understand the emotions of the women, it is not possible at all. It is going to be having a deeper impact because of the natural inclination that they have in terms of holding the tree together, in terms of holding the family together, in terms of taking care of the children, in terms of doing other activities. The way that they try to look at the world has got to be different. And similarly, for a man as well, it is very important that their thought process should be in accordance with that. Don't take direct biological aspect when we talk about man versus woman. It is the characteristics that establish that in a person. There will be attributions of women in men, and there will be attributions of men in women. This is something that cannot be denied at all. But predominant driver is going to be which attribution is heavier in you, is more in you. Garbha Upanishad will very beautifully put it as the reason for a manliness or a womanliness or a in between to be born is based on what is more active in at the time of conceiving. That is being spoken, and there are people who say that no, this is based on chromosome, that the man and woman, if that is the case, then there is no neuter gender that will come in. But we know there is an experience of that as well. So attributing it at a physical level will be inappropriate. It should be attributed at the characteristic level, and that defines the emotions in the person. That is why there could be places where a physically born as a woman could have a lot more of manly characteristics as opposed to a man in physically born as a man having a lot more of a characteristic of a woman, and their emotions will change. And that is the basis. Your basis of the emotion is the construct of your body. Based on the construct of your body, your emotions will emerge. And that emotion should be respected and honored as the property of the body, not of the self. That is the basic difference that we get when we learn about Bhagavad Gita. That differentiation is the one which will enable you to go on the path of a Sthitaprajña. What is it? That is why when Bhagavan will speak about Adhyatmam, which is Swabhav, we even normally we say one's true nature, right? That person knows their Swabhav. And that Swabhav is the bodily aspect, the Prakritik Amsam, not Atma Swarupa Amsam. It is not the characteristics of the Atma, it is the characteristic of the body. And Atma is supporting the body for it to function. Their emotions are part of that function and allow that emotion to be in its full form. Do not challenge it or do not course correct it as well. Support it where it is needed. That's about it. That is what we do as the Atma itself, merely providing it the base, with the realization that this emotion that is getting expressed is the swabhav of the manaha, and that manaha will experience this and it will continue its other experiences in life. The problem will be when you attach your false ego, ahambhava or ahankara, into that, then you will attribute you to be the one who is suffering. The suffering of the manaha, or the experiences which we identify as the suffering of the manaha, is going to be eternal. And we identifying it will in itself be a cure in terms of I being impacted by that. I stand to understand that I am the base for this mind, and this mind is currently going through some of the emotions. Let it flow in its real and natural form. The difference will be there based on what is your personality. And that personality defines how you experience such situations. And that situations are not experienced by you as an Atmaswarupam. It is the experience that the manaha, your mind, is experiencing. And it is experiencing because of its own nature. And that realization is what we will try to understand as we go more and more into Bhagavad Gita. So at this point, I will take a break and will open it up for any other question and answer, or if there is any clarifying thought, if there are anything that someone wants to speak about the second chapter or the Q&A that we just spoke about, absolutely well. Let us start with Prabhakar Bhaiya. Namaskar Bhaiya.
Namaskar, Kochi. This leaf and stem analogy is really very connecting. Thank you. And I need help with regulating oneself from the attractions by taking something, fixing something higher as this one. This I pointedly talk about the habits that we have. How should I proceed with this?
This is an amazing question. How can I stop myself from getting attracted towards the sensory objects? That is a question that you have asked, but it has got two steps that we have already discussed. One is your sense organs getting attracted to the sensory objects is inevitable. It is natural and normal. The problem happens because the mind is developing an attachment to that experience, the spriha. So it is not the sensory object or the sense organs that requires a regulation, but it is the manaha, the mind. The exercises for the mind to get stern on what it wants, there are several of them. The first one is meditation. In meditation, what we try to do is we develop the habit for the manaha to get back to its base whenever it wanders or gets attached to something. Okay, so you trying to gain control of your own mind is the first step. So when you do the meditation, it will help you to overcome such attractions or such attachments that the mind develops. The second is turning yourself from being a subjective person to an objective person, which means at all times I am going to be keeping myself towards my objective. Now, when we are developing that objective, it is not a desire to reach something. It is not a desire towards an attainment of a goal. Objective is the goal. And now my focus is on the march. The problem happens when we set a goal and we call that as an objective and we develop our attachment towards that objective itself. We need to be able to differentiate between the two, where the path is the place where my focus is and the objective is merely a guiding point. This is again to be developed in you as an exercise, even as part of the meditation. Especially when we go into the value meditations, there are 4 kinds of meditation: relaxation, concentration, which is something that we all know of, right? The other 2 are called as value meditation and expansion meditation. That value meditation is the one that it will come and we may have to develop that value into us. In other words, similar to what we do in meditation, whenever the mind is seen to get attached to the non-current, wake up your mind and bring it to the current. That is a conscious effort. When you start doing, it will automatically lead you in the path of withdrawing yourself from the attachment towards sensory objects. The third one is the seeing of higher value. Seeing of higher value will come when you realize that I can achieve this, and for that I need to be focused on doing these things. And this objective that I have got set is not something that I desire to reach, but is a milestone for me. And my focus I'm going to develop on the steps that I have to take to achieve it. I'm repeating what I had told as a value meditation into this place as well, but it is intentional. Here, the param drashtva, what Bhagavan had spoken, is that param is the value of that objective in terms of the steps that I am going to take to reach towards that objective. That is the basic difference. We always say that bhakti, devotion, is an important aspect. With devotion, we have to also add discipline. The discipline is where we are very committed. Even if in case I can let go of my objective, my discipline I will not let go. 4:45 I get up, 4:45 I get up. It's not Saturday, it's not Sunday or anything. And this kind of a discipline development is again another aspect that we can attach to it. Other than that, we will have lots of values that we can look at when we are going into the 13th chapter. But we'll be touching upon several of these values, and I can speak on this forever, but I thought I'll just give this as an answer for now. Any questions on the answer?
No, it's clear.
Thank you.
Yes.
As I said, to say all these things is easy, to practice is difficult. But what Bhagavan will say in the 6th chapter will be very beautiful. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyatam is the way that he will put it. Right. So that is the two. Abhyasam is repeated exercises, and vairagyam is you are developing the determination in you. When you do that, it is really possible. But for now, we will limit ourselves to these 3 or 4, whatever I said, as the steps towards that. So we will conclude our class today, and we will connect again in our next week with Karma Yoga. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.